we'll do a review in the Sichas in Chelek Yud Zayin, volume 17, the fourth Sicha for the Parsha Shemini. Now, this is a very technical Rashi Sicha, and when the Torah discusses about the various things that cannot be eaten, the Torah discusses in one pasuk, it discusses the insects and the various different kinds of snakes, etc., and that cannot be eaten. And in the Rashi over there, when we try to compare the different Rashis and how Rashi compares with the Torah's Kohanim and the Gemara, we see differences, which is very, very difficult to understand. Why Rashi says what he is saying, why Rashi doesn't seem to be consistent. The Rebbe is going to take apart this Rashi's in every details in generally, but it's a very technical, and we'll see inside the explanation how the Rebbe brilliantly explains all the details in the Rashi. Let's go inside. There's also a beautiful, in the end, as usual, a Hira in Avodas Hashem, and also that this happens to be the word Gochen that we're going to be discussing. The middle of the word Vav is a large Vav, and it's also the middle of the Torah in the numbers of letters of the Torah. So there's an equal amount of letters in the Torah before the word Vav before the letter Vav of the word Gochen, and an equal amount of letters on the other side after the Vav of the word Gochen. We're going to discuss the word Gochen, which is talking about the snake who crawls on the stomach, as we will see in the Rashi. The Rebbe will bring from the Tzemach Tzedek. We'll also bring from the Maharsha later on in the Sikha. Well, let's start and go step by step. Aleph. Kol hoylech al gochen. This is the pasuk that says. The pasuk talks about three different kinds. When it discusses three different kinds of insects, crawling things that you cannot eat, shrotzim. So it says like this: three things. It says kol hoylech al gochen. Any one that moves on the stomach, simply meaning Gochen. We'll see Rashi types is a little different, but that's part of the explanation. But the Pashtus is any crawling, any insect, any crawling thing that walks on its stomach, meaning no legs, but it goes on the stomach. The whole, it's going to be not to be eaten. And further he says, the whole hoylech al arba, an insect that walks on legs, which is an unusual for insects. Most insects crawl, but this is talking about a scorpion, as we will see in the Rashi. One who walks on, any one that walks on four of the insects, ad kol marbe raglayim v'gomer, and also included in this is all that have lots of legs, which Rashi will explain what that is, as we'll see inside the Goyim. So the Rebbe is going to start one Rashi at a time. It's Rashi Maitik in Eshton Dibur Hamaskim. So in the first opening for the pasuk, explaining the pasuk, he quotes from the verse Hoylech al Gochen, goes on its stomach. Uniz Mefarish. Rashi explains. Zenochash, that refers to the snake. A nochosh is hoylech al gochen. And the loshin gochen. Soon we'll see next Rashi what is called hoylech al gochen. But here first, what is gochen? Zenochash. The loshin gochen. What is the language of gochen? Rashi says, what does it mean? Walks on gochen. So Rashi says, Shechiyah, bent over, Shahoylech Shoch, that he goes bent, V'noifel al me'av, and then he falls onto his stomach. So, seems to be a little bit strange. Favos Rashi teiched. Why Rashi translates Hoylech al Gochen Zen Nochash? Why is Rashi saying walking on the stomach would be a Nochash? There's many other creeping, crawling things that creep on their stomach. Why did Rashi choose that it means the Nochash? Because the Torah refers to the Nochash as a Hoylech al Gochen. So the reason Favos Rashi teiched Hoylech al Gochen Zen Nochash is Muban in Pashtus. That is understood simply why Rashi chooses that the Hoylech al Gochen is a snake. Because there ain't sicher ort in Torah wo mi gefind an ähnlichen Loshen. The only time in the Torah that you find a similar language of Gochen by Shirotzim, when we're talking about the insects, or the Shirotzim is by Nochosh, is by the snake. Over there, the Torah says the Lashon of these kinds of rodents is a snake. In Parshas Bereshis, wo steht al gechoincha telech. There, when the Eibishter cursed in Nochosh, the snake, for enticing Chava and Adam to eat from the Eitz Hadas, so the Eibishter says, you shall walk al gechoincha. So it says the word gochen there. Is there fun muchach, and there's no other place where the Torah, with regards to the insects, the rodents, where the Torah says the word gechencha is move on, is the fun muchach. It's evident as oich hoylech al gochen meint nochash. That when the pasuk says here hoylech al gochen, we're talking about a snake. That's what it means hoylech al gochen. All right, so we understand why Rashi says Hoylech al Gochen is a snake. But why Rashi explains the meaning of Gechencha is a little bit that it bends and then it falls on his stomach. That seems to be different than some of the other Meforshim, and Rashi doesn't explain anything al Gechencha Telech, what it means. Rashi seems to say something, an addition here, walking bent over and then falling on its stomach. We need to, however, understand the ending of this Rashi, of this commentary of Rashi. Rashi says, Loshin Gochin Shechiyah, that the Loshin of Gochin means bent over. That he goes bent over, and then Neufel al Meyav, and then he falls on his stomach, on his intestines. Vigizok, as we said, this Rashi, as we have already the word Gechoin, Rashi doesn't give this translation. In the Parshas Bereshis, it says Al Gechoin Telech. What does it mean over there? Rashi doesn't say that you should go bent over and fall on your stomach. Rashi doesn't say anything there. But don't is Rashi nit mefarish was is loshen gochen. Rashi doesn't explain what does it mean when it says you should go al gechoincha. The only thing Rashi mentions over there, nor as raglayim hoyu loy v'niktzatzu. The only thing Rashi does say that he had legs and they were cut off. But not this whole thing that he goes bent over and he falls on his stomach. He's not move on. So it's not understood. Rashi odom gedarf Vater sein dem Teich von Goche in dem ersten Mal, then steht in Chumash. Rashi should have explained the meaning of Goche. It says there Al Gechoin Chotelech the first time when it says in the Chumash. Und nicht verlosen sich auf sein Pirush in Parsha Shemini, and not to rely on the commentary that he's going to give in the Parsha Shemini. So why does Rashi not explain it over there? That the Rebbe will explain that Gechoincha over there taka doesn't mean that. Over there it means pasha on the stomach. B'chatchila over here in the fitting of this pasuk, as the Rebbe will explain, it has to be the Gechoincha Taylor that first it goes bent over until it falls on its me'ayim base. The Choyre, when you can't enter, and the Rebbe said maybe it would seem that we could answer this question. Why Rashi doesn't say earlier anything in the pasuk al Gechoincha Taylor? As Rashi is not mefarish in Parshas Breishis al Gechoincha Taylor, that Rashi is not explained in the portion of Breishis the meaning of al Gechoincha Taylor. Weil der Teich von Gochen is moving meilo. What Gochen means, it's self-understood. Und auf einem von zwei Erfahrungen. In one of two ways we can say that Rashi doesn't have to explain it because it's obvious what it means, but then we'll have to understand. So why does Rashi have to explain it over here, as the Rebbe will say? But why would Rashi not need to explain the meaning of Gechoincha Telech? Because two possibilities what Gechoincha can mean. We find one of the rivers that came out from Eden. It says it split the Arba Roshim, and one of them is called Gichoin. Gichoin and Gechoincha is similar. Maybe the meaning Rashi knows the word Gechoincha is like the same meaning as the river which is called Gichoin. Over there, Gichoin Rashi translates because the water sort of roars and pushes. That's the kind of a action of the Nachash. Also, we can say, let's look inside. From Pasuk, and since that Pasuk is earlier, Rashi doesn't have to say anything. Aleph. From Pasuk V'Shem Hanor Hasheni Gichoin, the name of the second river of the four rivers, was state Faral Gechoincha Telech. This is a Pasuk in Breishis, earlier also in Breishis, but that Pasuk is before the Pasuk in Breishis where it says Al Gechoincha Telech. State Faral Gechoincha Telech. Taich Rashi, so Rashi translates Gichoin Shahoya Hoylech V'Hoyme, that it kept on going and roaring, and that roar is makes noise. The river roars. It's a very strong sound. This would be the same. Also, the loshon of Gichon Yigach. What is the meaning of goring? When the ox gore, he goes and he roars. That's the way he gores. That he gores and he keeps on roaring. Rashi doesn't have to say what means al gechen chatela because we can touch the same thing. Since the snake crawls on the ground, Rashi zok, as Rashi said, that he had legs and they were cut off. So that walk is called on your gochen. L'shoin ha'Evan Ezra, and the Rebbe says, as the Evan Ezra says, how he types the word Gechoincha. It's because of the wind that roars from him, this haze. So that would mean the Gechoincha, based on the Amiyos Gedola, on the level of roaring. That would be the idea of, I hope I'm translating the words correctly, maybe English a little better words than I'm using, choice of words, but the contents is understood. Aber das heißt, Rashi verlässt sich auf sein Pirush im früheren Posik Gichet. So according to this one possibility, that would mean that Rashi relies on his commentary on the previous verse, Gichet. So that's what Rashi doesn't have to tell you al Gichet. That's how the Even Ezra teaches the word al Gichet. Another possibility that Gochin made my base. Maybe Gochin means the intestines, the stomach, with the Targum teached, as the Targum translates, Al Gechoncha Telech, walk on your Gechoncha, Al Meach Tizel, go on your stomach, other Choze, or your chest, Kipirish, Eben Ezra, as the Eben Ezra says. On Rashi, so Gechoncha is obvious. Gechoncha either means a stomach, it means the intestines, or it means the chest, the crawling of the Rashi darfis need mefarish zayin. Rashi doesn't have to mefarish zayin to explain the meaning of the word gochen. Warum das is a word in Lashon Kodesh was the Talmud Veisayin Pirush, because that's a word gochen is a word that it's a Hebrew word, it's a Lashon Kodesh word. The students knows the meaning, and Rashi doesn't have to explain it to him. Punkt wer weiß dem Teich. Just as he knows the translation, say me'ayin, the intestine, the stomach, or chaza, the chest, he knows what it is. So he doesn't have to also. So this would be two possibilities why Rashi doesn't have to explain it over there. Okay, so that's fine and good. But the question is then, so why does Rashi have to change it over here? But according to this, it's the difficulties on the other side. Vos is Rashi's hechrech? What is Rashi's evidence? As though is the pirush von Heilach Hal Gochin, that in our pasuk when it says it goes on the Gochin means something different. Nitvi al Baal Gechan Chatelach, not as the pasuk Gechan Chatelach, which Rashi doesn't explain, because it's obvious to Rashi. Why do we have to say that over here it's different? With the Eben Ezra, though he's mefarish, the Eben Ezra is actually explains over here. Nit hoylech v'hoyme chulu. He doesn't explain that it means that he goes and he roars, or the Kipirush Targum, or the Targum says over here, me ohi on the stomach. Rashi doesn't say that. The Eben Ezra says it means the roaring. The Targum says on the stomach. Rashi says no. The Loshin Gochen Shchiyah v'chulu. Gochen means that you are bent over, and then falls on the stomach. Why does Rashi have to change it? So the question is not how come Rashi didn't explain it earlier, but the question is if earlier it's obvious, but it's a different pirush. Why does Rashi have to say it different? Okay. Now the next thing is the pasuk says Hoylech al Raglo. We say it means a snake, but the pasuk says Kol Hoylech al Raglo. Oh, sorry, Hoylech al Gochet. The pasuk says Hoylech al Gochet, and then it says Kol Hoylech al Gochet. What does it mean? Kol. What does it mean? All. What does that include? The Noch is Rashi Megimel. The Noch is Rashi Mighty Kol Hoylech. Und is mefarish, and he explains lahavi al shilshulin v'esadoyma ledoyma. Don't know how to translate the word shilshulin, but we will see the. It's a kind of a crawling, maybe a worm. Worm is called a shilshul. And that's hadoina ledoina, and also that which is similar to that which is similar. It seems like a worm is similar to a snake, and then there's another category which is similar to a worm. So it includes everything. So kol, as the Rebbe will ask on that, but in the Pashtus, in the reader Rashi, we're talking about a snake. That's kol means the worm, which is similar to the snake, and then also adding something which is similar to a worm further. Is the move on? It's not understood. Emes takas kol is aribu. It is actually true that when it says kol, it's adding, it's a conclusion. Aber verbandent is the raya al derech hapshat. But how? What we're learning in the simple meaning, in the way of pshat, what is the evidence? As it is marbet sveizach. How do we know that the kol is marbet two things? First of all, aleph is marbet shulshulim, the worms, and beis, and number two, ves hadoime ledoime, and also that is similar to that which is similar. The shilshul is doime to the snake, and then another category is like, how do we know it's coming that way? To add something else. When you look actually in the source, the Gemara does not actually say that. It's and Rashi chooses the language of the Teres Kohanim, could have choose the lotion of the Gemara. Let's see. Base the kasha bet noch starker. This question becomes even greater when we look at the sources for this drasha. The drasha is da in Teres Kohanim und Gemara. This expounding of this call that it means the Shulshulim Daima comes both in the Teres Kohanim and in the Gemara. The Loshen from Rashi, the Es Hadoime Ledoime, Rashi's language, that's which is similar to the similar state in Teres Kohanim. That's actually in Teres Kohanim. Aber in Gemara is the Loshen, the Es Hadoime L'Shilshul. Doesn't say doime lidoime, but it says doime l'shilshul. What's the difference? When we say in the Gemara, we can say that it's not a new category. It's one thing. It's the shilshul and what's similar to the shilshul. It's not one category lower. Doime lidoime means doime is category B, and doime lidoime is category C, a further level. In the Gemara, we can, and Rashi chooses this lashon. Is loy der girsa von Gemara, according to the version of the Gemara. Kemen lernen the deiche kakoponim. We are able to learn. Yeah, it's even though it's not so smooth, but we could squeeze in as kol is marbe blois einzach. That the kol is only including one item, which is shilshul. That's the one item. It's not two items. The shilshul v'adoime l'shilshul is one item. To say shilshul is a dugma von dem min von dem was wir lernen auf von dem ribui. Shilshul only provides us an example of what is included. So we're including one thing, and as an example, we're saying shilshul. Was is koilel jeden sheres. Was is doime to shilshul. Shilshul, it means the shilshul and all of those that are shilshul. That's just a sample. Upshita shilshul gofa. So for sure, the shilshul itself. So we're saying that shilshul ba'doime l'shilshul is just telling you it's the general category of shilshul, those that look like shilshul, those that look like, and what's similar to that. That's how we can say the meaning is in the Teres Kohanim, the Gemara. Aber later girsa von Teres Kohanim, but according to the version of the Teres Kohanim, as hadoime ledoime, similar to this is mudgash over there. There's an emphasis. Ado zainen zwei ribuyim zwei madreges. So we have the emphasis that these are two inclusions. Zwei madreges. There are two steps, categories here. Aleph shilshul, is doimel lenachosh. That is similar to the nachosh. Beis ves hadoimel ledoima. The shrotzim v'zayne need doimel lenachosh. You have shrotzim that are not similar to the snake, not doimel leshilshul, because that's the category of doimel leshilshul. Was eralein shilshul himself is doimel lenachosh, is only similar to the nachosh. And we're including this next category. Rashi klaptois the girsa from Teres Kahanim, or need the girsa from Gemara. And Rashi chooses the version of the Teres Kahanim and not the version of the Gemara. So Rashi similar seems like wants to say that this call is coming to include two things. Why? How do we know more than one? And number three, other Parvos is Rashi Maitik from Posik, Oich Kol Hoylach. Rashi explains what the extra kol, what is it coming to include. So why in the quote from the Pasuk he also quotes the word Hoylach? That ribu is the blois from word kol. This extra that we learn out is only the word kol. Why does he have to bring down the word Hoylach as well? Quoting, why does he quote from the verse the word Hoylach as well? And Rebbe says if you contrast this in the next few Rashis, where Rashi will explain the Hoylach Arba and then the Koil Hoylach Arba. Over there, Rashi just uses the word Koil to say it doesn't have over there Kol Hoylach. And here Rashi says Kol Hoylach Nochbe. Like Speter Bekayetsu right immediately in a similar way when Rashi explains the Hoylach Arba and the Koil. Is Rashi maiting from the Verter, the Koil Hoylach Arba. Over there it says all that walk on four, nor than word Koil. He only brings the word Koil. And he says to include the chaposis from the word Koil. Undo is Rashi Moisef Umatik Oich Hoylach. And over here Rashi is also quoting the Hoylach. Chaposis, I don't know exactly also how to translate that, but that's a crawling thing. It's also a rodent, like an akra, like a scorpion, but it has another two legs that it doesn't really use to walk on. So that's why it's similar to Hoylach Alarm, as we'll see later on. But for now, the Rebbe just wants to understand why does Rashi bring down over here Kol Hoylach in the similar. Rashi over there just brings the word kol, which includes the chaposis. And here Rashi adds and also quotes it. Okay, so we have two Rashi, the Hoylach al Gochan and Koil. Hoylach al Gochan. Then we're going to the next thing in the pasuk is Hoylach al Arba. Dalet. The Noch, and there's similar questions that we have over here, we have in the next Rashi as well. The Noch is Rashi Maitik Hoylach al Arba. Quotes from the pasuk goes on 4. That's a scorpion. Does Rashi know that it's an akra? Because there's only one rodent, one sheretz that goes on 4. Is that einziger sheretz was his Hoylach al Arba that goes on 4. And so the sheretz is the creepy crawling. It's a scorpion is included. It's not doesn't include others of these crawling stuff. I mean, there's a lot of rodents, I guess, that go on 4 legs, but that's not the shrotzim that are included over here. It's not the crawling things that are included over here. It's separate. The rodents are a separate category. Welcher is der einzige sheretz was is Hoylach al Arba. That's the only sheretz that goes on 4 legs is the akrov. So Rashi knows it. Just like we said before, How do we know Hoylech Halgacha? Because the Nochosh is the Hoylech Halgacha that the Pasuk talks about. Here we know because that's a sheretz that goes on 4. Und der Noch is mighty kinal, and then Rashi quotes, as said before, again, kol. What does that include? Which is ashkarbut belaz in the language in Laz. It's called the ashkarbut, and then he says ve'es hadoime ledoime, and that is similar to that one that is similar. So the chapushis is similar to the akrov, and also the doime to the chapushis is also good. Is oich don move on al derech hanal siv gimel here too. We don't understand similar as before in siv gimel. Aleph, we had before. Manet nemt Rashi from Shatak Suvim. Where does Rashi take out? How does Rashi know from this simple meaning of the psukim? As their call is Maravet Sveizach, that the word call. It says call Arba comes to include 2 things. Aleph, number 1, hakaposis, and number 2, beis and that which is similar to the similar one. Kaposis is daim lenoch, and also the similar to the kaposis. Beis favos klait ois Rashi the girsa from Teres Kahanim. Why does Rashi also again choose the language of Teres Kahanim, which says daim ledaim? Not from the Gemara, and not from the Gemara. Ve'es hadoime lechipusis. Similar questions as before, because that way the doime lechipusis could be translated that the chipusis is only a sample, but we're only including one thing, not 2 things. And finally, in the pasuk, the 3rd thing is also says ad kol marbe raglayim. Also, all that have many feet. Hey, später stellt sich Rashi, if marbe raglayim, the one who has lots of feet, is mefarish, he explains zen nadal. That's the nadal. That's the nadal crawling thing, which is sheret sheyesh leraglayim ereshev atznavoi lekanu lekan. It's a kind of an insect, a sheretz that has legs from his head to his tail on both sides. The koidim sind fidish, called sind fidish. And is Rashi Messiah and Pidish of the Pasuk, and that's how Rashi concludes his commentary on this Pasuk. It doesn't explain the kol marbe raglayim. It just says what the marbe raglayim is. So Rebbe says, "Those was Rashi is ma'irich this meroshev atznavoi as nodul zesheret sheyesh lo raglayim meroshev atznavoi lekanu lekan v'koyrim tzin fidish." That we call it tzin and it has legs from the head to the tail. Why does Rashi not say just short? Zen nadel tzin blas. There's another one. It's verstandig. That we understand. Rashi bavorun. Rashi cautions us zayin and doch faran asach shrotzim mit harbe raglayim. There are many insects that have many legs. So, why do we say? Why would we translate that? It means nadul dafke. It means the nadul. Maybe it means other insect. So Rashi has to explain that even as Rashi Masbir, Rashi explains that those Hasheres was a ganzer gufat raglayim. That's an insect that his entire body is full with legs. From the head till the tail. On the can both sides. On their far, and that's why the koirin rufmanim, and that's why he's called Shemribu Haraglayim. Because he has so many legs, they call him Sint Fidish, which means Meir Raglayim, 100 legs, because that's the one who has so many legs, 100 legs in it. And that's why when it says Marbe Raglayim, talking about this as an example. That's the insect. When the Torah says a marbe raglayim, it means a nadel. It's finished. So that much we understand. But Rashi done it mefarish the word kol marberaglaim. Why not the word kol? Like in the two previous one, what is this kol coming to add? Or state in pasuk? Says the pasuk. Azakun marbezain oich under shrotzim that is coming to include also under other insects. Vazain marberaglaim. That are also that have lots of legs and they're similar to another. And I should have said doime vesat doime. That's compared to doime. So how come Rashi doesn't say anything? And the Rebbe says, and actually in the source of Rashi, the Teres Kohanim and the Gemara, there's actually drushes on this as well, just like Rashi admits that. The Pele is not Sai in Teres Kohanim. Sai in Gemara, that both in Teres Kohanim Gemara state here. Over there it actually says, as ad kol marbe, ad kol is marbe, as adoime, ledoime. That is what's similar and what's syllogism. As Rashi had said that the previous two cases. Rashi brings these expounding of our blessed memory on the first two times, which state will call in Posik, which Michal says in Posik, only by Dritmo and not by the third time. So what's going on over here? So there's a lot of technical questions, but they need to be answered, and we'll see. The Rebbe in Oizvov begins to explain the answers to these questions. Oizvov. The Rebbe begins now the explanation to answer all the questions we had in the Rashi. So first of all, the Rebbe explains, while we know that Hoylech al Gochen means a snake, because that's what the Parsha calls Agachon Chatelech earlier. And we know that Hoylech al Arba means an Akrov, because that's the only one. But the question is, why did the Torah choose to use that Lashon, not explicitly say Nochosh and Akrov? Those are pretty common names in the Torah. So why does it have to say Hoylech al Gochen and it means a Nochosh? Hoylech al Arba, it means as Akrov. When the Torah could have said an Nochosh and Akrov. So that means, that tells us that the Torah doesn't want to just include only a Nochosh. The Torah wants to talk only about one characteristic of the Nochosh, which is the creeping and crawling, and therefore the Kol Hoylech is including all those that crawl in a similar way. Let's look inside. The explanation, all the above. The gesagt früher, as said earlier, und dem was der Posuk nutzt dem Loshen Hoylech al Gochen. The fact that the Torah uses the Loshen, walks on the Gochen, we know a Loshen was stated nor by Nochosh. That's a language which is only used with regards to the Nochosh. Is Muchach, so it's evident as there meant Anochosh, that what he means here is the snake. Ze Nochosh. So we know that Hoylech al Gochen means a snake. But why does the Torah not say a snake beferish? We also know when it says Hoylech al Arba that it means an akrov, a scorpion, because that's the only one of the shrotzim that goes on four legs. We bowed as the einziger sheretz was his Hoylech al Arba. The only sheretz that walks on four is an akrov, is a scorpion. Is the fun muchach. So that's why from this it's evident as the Torah read wegen akrov. The Torah discusses here about the scorpion when it says Hoylech al Arba. Ze akrov, as Rashi says. This is the akrov. The question is, aber farvos zog der posik Hoylech al Gochen, Hoylech al Arba. Was meine Nochosh v'akrov? Why does the posik say goes on its stomach or goes on four legs? Which means the snake and the scorpion, and doesn't say briefly and in short and clearly, instead of giving you the simonim of the Nochosh Nakro. And the Rebbe in the bracket explains that this is only a problem in this two sentences, the Hoylech al Goch and Hoylech al Arba, and not Kol Marbe Raglayim. Over there, we understand why it doesn't say Zenadl, because we don't know what a Nadl is. Not a common name. Bishleima vose steht Marbe Raglayim nit Nadl. The fact that it says Marbe Raglayim and not Nadl, can answer. We can answer. While Nadl is nit kin Loshen HaMikra. It's not a usual language of the Pasuk word, so we can't say a Nadl. It gives them nit in Tanakh. We don't find the word Nadl in the Tanakh, Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim. Nor b'Toras Kahanim do b'Mishnah. It's in the Toras Kahanim or in the Mishnah, but Rashi brings Kama v'Kama Pomim Toras Kahanim v'Pirush v'Ferish v'Sefer v'Yikra. So that's where we find it, but not in the pasuk. But therefore, the pasuk has to say Marbe Raglayim, because there is no. We have to tell you what we're talking about a nadl, but it can't say nadl itself. That's not a common word to be used in the Chumash, in the Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim. Oh, ber Nochosh un Akrov. When we talk about the Nochosh and the Akrov, seine doch Wörter verstehen kann man im Chumash. There are words that are stated many times in the Chumash. So why does the Torah say Hoylech al Gochen and Hoylech al Arba? Why doesn't it say a Nochosh and a Akrov? Which what it means, a Nochosh and a Akrov. So muss man sagen, we have to say a Nochosh has several characteristics. That the only characteristics that we're trying to speak of is the characteristic of Hoylech al Gochen. That's the characteristic that we want to talk about. And that's the call going to be marbe, anything of that specific characteristic, which in this case would be the Hoylech al Gochen. Muss man sagen, as mit Hoylech al Gochen read the Torah, the Hoylech al Gochen, the Torah is talking about the Nochosh, nicht als Klolus HaNochosh, was hat kama v'kama tchunas. Now, talking about a snake in general who has many different character traits. What a Nochosh. Then it would have to say Nochosh, but the Torah doesn't want to say Nochosh as a Nochosh. Nor davke al Sazah, Torah wants to specifically say, was hat die tchuna von Hoylech al Gochen. Now, we're talking about here the fact that it climbs on the Gochen. Is the Mela move on. So therefore it's understood. As kol Hoylech al Gochen. When you say anything that Hoylech al Gochen is marbe shrotzim was einen doime zu Nochosh. So what kind of shrotzim are we including that are similar to the Nochosh? Dafki in the meaning von Hoylech al Gochen, specifically in this aspect that it goes on the Gochen, not other character traits of the Nochosh. Torah writes this because that's the character trait that we're talking about, and anyone that has that character trait, which is shilshulim cholo. Well, derech zed, same thing is when it says kol Hoylech arba, the Torah wants to talk specifically, include the kol, something which has the characteristic of Hoylech al arba. Und der Pfarr der Posik nicht sagen Nochosh und der Akrov. The Posik cannot say, because the pasuk wants to include things that are similar to the crawling part of the Nochosh and similar to the four legs of the Akrov. The pasuk can need zog Nochosh or the Akrov. If it would say Nochosh Akrov by itself and damult volt kol marbe given, then kol would only include nor shrotzim from Nochosh Akrov. Only those shrotzim that are part of Nochosh v'Akrov, because it says Nochosh, it would have said Nochosh, said Akrov. It has to be a Nochosh and Akrov, has to be of that kind. Kol of the Nochosh and Akrov. Oder afile mivot marbe given eich demelem. Even we would have added something which is similar, not a nochos nachro. Wollt man sie nicht gewusst, in was sie darfen sie dein, wollt man nicht gewusst, in was darfen sie dein Däume. We wouldn't know in what aspect of the nochos they need to be compared to. It's called nochos, even if you want to include. Let's say we'll say that you're going to include others that are not a nochos, but we don't know what characteristics do they have. In dem inyan von Heulach al Gochen und Heulach al Arba, which is the pasuk writing it. We wouldn't know that, other than not the problem. Maybe it's for things about other details. We would not know that. So the Torah writing Heulach al Gochen tells us we're not talking api. We're not talking about only snakes. We're not talking about only scorpions. We're talking about characteristics that the Nochosh has, which is Heulach al Gochen. And we're talking with the characteristic that the Akrov has the Heulach al Arba. So the Alpi is moving bepashtus based on this. It's self-understood. Avos Rashi cannot learn, and Rashi cannot learn that Gochen. The reason is Gochen Baber Haruach Shiyagiach Mimenu, because of the wind that roars from him. Al derech Pirusha of Gichen, as Rashi explained before in the parsha by Gichen. Bal kol hoylech al Gochen, because we're saying anything that goes on the Gochen, kum doch marbe sein, andere shrotzim sein hoylech al Gochen, coming to other insects that go on the Gochen. We don't find another sheretz that should be going and roaring with the wind, the magiach ruach, and therefore we're not touching that touch. Zayin. Al pizeh is oich move on. According to this, we're saying that the Heulach al Gochen is that specific characteristic, and we're trying to include others that have this characteristic. So the Rebbe explained why we can't say that it means Heulach Magiach Ruach, because there's no other sheretz to include. And we can also not also not to say translate as the Targum translates. Al Gochen al Ma'oi, that Al Gochen means on the stomach, on the intestines. While Damut is nit move on, because then it's not understood. What's nuts der posig dem Loschen Gochen? Why does it say Gochen? And then you know that it means the snake. And the reason we know is while der Loschen steht nor by Nochash Kanal. So you're saying we know the snake because it's Gochen. And then the same thing by Kol Heulach al Arba, the second part in the pasuk is Marba andere Shrotzim. That includes other Shrotzim. So, why would the Torah not write the Fedish? It goes on the Me'ayin. As though you can't stay in Aloshem not to say Nochosh. And Nochosh, the characteristic Heulach al Gochen, called Heulach al Gochen, which would therefore mean those that meet the characteristic of the Gochen. The Torah could have said a language, which would include all the shrotzim. Not talk about a snake and the characteristic of the snake, which is Heulach al Gochen, if the meaning of Gochen is that it climbs on its stomach. Could say it goes on its meyav. That's what the pasuk could have said. Muslim zogen, so therefore we have to say, as Heulach al Gochen is a tchuno, was is takedo nor beim Nochosh. Now this Heulach al Gochen is only a characteristic which is by the snake. It's not a general characteristic which is by all crawling things. It is owned by the snake. And that's why the Torah wants to say the snake and anything that has that crawly characteristic of the snake, the Hoylech al Gocha. The Far Teich Rashi, Veloshin, Gochen, Shechia, Shahoylech, Soch, V'Neufel. Gochen means bent over, and Shahoylech Soch, it goes bent over, V'Neufel al Meir, when it falls on the stomach. First he goes bent, not on the Meir. No Spetter is a Neufel al Meir, but later on he falls in. Mashenkin Shulshulim, as opposed to these worms, or Kiyetzebay, was Mizmarbe from Kol, which we are including from the word Kol. They, to begin with, they crawl on their stomachs. This is by Gochen. Similar thing is also by the Akro. And al derech ze kol heilach al arba. Cannot just say a characteristic which would include everybody, because kol heilach nor an akrov is heilach al arba kipshute. Can't mean anything else. Heilach al arba can only mean a akrov. When we talk about the chapusi, what means marbe from coil, which we learn out from coil. They have more than 4 legs. But using Lashon the Mefarshim, the upper legs are not used, so they're not really arba raglayim, because they're not really used so much. But who has hoylech al arba is only the akro. So, under Far is Rashi meitig from Pasuk kol hoylech. Rashi quotes the word also hoylech from the Pasuk. Idem is madgish. He emphasizes with this as the Endlichkeit zwischen sei mit Nochash. That what is the similarity? We say all that walk. What is their similarity with the snake? Is blois in der halicha. It's only hoylech that they go. In the walking, was kommt der später beim Nochash, that comes later by the snake. Noch dem, was is neflameo. After he falls, then later on he crawls. Aber the Indian von Gochen, Lashon Shchia, Shoylech Soch, but the idea that it's bent and he's going bent in is by Zeitak and Ito. They don't have it. So, it's not like the saying of Hoylech al Ragla means something else, but and the Nochash and it could say another language, because that is actually the only thing which is Hoylech al Arba. That's the only thing that is al Gochen, according to Rashi's Pshat, that walks and then falls. Yes. Apizei's Bubon was Rashi claimed to his Girsas Teres Kahanim, where Rashi chooses the version of the Teres Kahanim, which says Ve'es hadoime ledoime, and that which is similar to that which is similar. What is Rashi trying to tell us over here? This is not a third category. Erlostuns der Mitwissen is coming to teach us Aleph, der Kol nit marbe sein noch shrotzim in min hanochash v'akro. This is not coming to include other insects in the snake category or the scorpion category. Was damut is das marbe euch azolche was ein dem zenloze. Then you would be including others which are not similar, because it's only in the family of the snake or the family of the acro but they don't have this similar characteristic. So, what is the kol including? Nor shrotzim was hoben adinyin to nochosh v'akrov. Not the family of nochosh v'akrov, not the mean, but rather any other insects, but they have a similarity nochosh v'akrov. In the inyan von heulech al gochen and al arba, that they too go on the gochen, and that they too go on 4. That's doimer. Base. That's number 1. That we're talking about doimer, and we're not talking about doimer, not talking about category of the snake or the scorpion. Base. The idach on the other hand, afilu shilshulim zayne nit doimer lenochosh b'chol prot. Also, a shilshul is not similar to a snake in all details. Even when he is walking in that aspect that is going on the gochen, is not fully the same. So that is also included. There's only a little bit of a similarity. Varum anochash is safe kol safe. In the end, he falls, so he's similar to the shilshul, but he's not really similar. So there's a difference over there. It has only a little of a similarity to the scorpion. In the minyan from arba, in this aspect that it goes on 4, they're not used to the 4 legs, so he only technically goes on 4. So since we're only talking about a comparison that is a little bit compared, it can include even that is similar to the other similar, because it's not about categories here, it's about a k'tzas dimyan. It only has a little bit of a similarity, that it goes on the gochen and it goes on 4, that is sufficient. Oistes. Api kol anal is move on the chiluk. Based on the above, we understand the difference between kol hoylech al gochen and kol hoylech al arba. The first 2 cases which Rashi doesn't, which Rashi explains the word kol, on kol marbe raglayim, where Rashi is nit mefarish tevis kol, where Rashi does not explain the meaning of kol. Why? Because hoylech al gochen and hoylech al arba, the climbing on the gochen, going on the gochen, and going on 4, they are only by the snake and the scorpion, on the far, and therefore, when the posik is meisiv kol hoylech al gochen v'kol hoylech al arba, that anyone that gochen, anyone hoylech al arba, kemeni taichi kipshuta, then you can't say it literally. Alle shrotzim was gein al gochen, gein al arba, because it doesn't exist. Hoylech al gochen, only a nachash is shoch and neufel, and only an akrav has 4 legs. So there's no other shrotzim was gein al gochen arba. But chutz nachash v'akrav is nito asheret was is hoylech al gochen al arba. Meila musmen zogen as kol do is nit kipshute nor is bol rabbis. So therefore, you have to say it doesn't mean all, because there's no all. There's only 1. What else is there? It's not all, and therefore, mashenke marba raglayim merve arba, as opposed to has many legs, which means more than 4 legs, the usual. Is da ba'aribu shrotzim. That exists by many shrotzim. Chotch, although chutz ba'nadal, although they don't have as many legs as a nadal, by the nadal is vazeido platz begufono, mer marbezayin chutz ba'nadal. By the other ones, there is room in their bodies to add raglaim to have more legs in other parts of the body. Ubemele is der taich from kol marbe raglaim. So what does kol marbe raglaim means? Literally. Everyone, because there's a lot of marbe raglaim. So that means literally. Rashi doesn't have to explain it. Alle sherotzim vazayin in the sug for marbe raglaim. All the sherotzim that are in the category that have lots of legs. But over here, we can't say all Hoylech HaGochan. There is no other Hoylech HaGochan like the snake. There is no other Hoylech HaHaba like the Akro. So therefore, we have to say that it means Doime. Yud, Medafa Befashteh. Loidem, according to this, we need to understand. Vi Taich Rashi. How does Rashi explain? Mar beraglayim zen nadal v'chulu. Seems like Rashi said this is the nadal. Here we're saying kol means everybody has legs, and which is a lot that has more than 4 legs, which is everyone. But Rashi just says the nadal nitzrayim dikapilu kigoy nadal. Rashi didn't even write as for example nadal. Rashi doesn't. If we're saying that the kol means any sheretz that has many legs. But the Rebbe says that because the 2 previous cases already talking about a specific sheretz, about a nochosh and an akrov, it's likely that this is also, even though the kol means all of them. Is that bir bazevi bald as in the erste zwei fall? Since in the first 2 cases, the Hoylech HaGochen and the Marbe Raglayim and the Hoylech HaLarba, Hoylech HaGochen Geber Hoylech HaLarba, mean that Posik ain't sheretz. The Posik means only one sheretz. Nochosh v'akriv u'kanal barucha. There's mistaber zu sagen, so it's logical to say, as euch in dritten Fall, Marbe Raglayim, meint man ein sheretz nadel. Logical to conclude that it also means just one sheretz the nadel. Und kol Marbe Raglayim meint alle sugin in dem inyan mean all categories in this kind of marbe raglayim of marbe raglayim. So itaka means the nadul. That's what the pasuk means, but the kol means all those that are with many legs, and it's obvious. Rashi doesn't have to say that, or Rashi, but it's still the same category because they're all many legged, more than 4 legs. Rashi darfes nit mefarish sein, als his movement meilo. Rashi doesn't need to explain this because this is self-understood. It doesn't say kol what it means because that's self-understood. This is al derech. It says many times, I created to its kind. So this is its kind. It's the same mean. It's the mean, but it's marbe raglayim. It's the same kind of marbe raglayim. Very technical. I realize a very technical sikha, very detailed, and needs to be studied well again, and maybe again to get all the details and the nuances and how we learn it out. The Rebbe's explanation will be for another time. Go weiter. The Hiroah in this case is a little easier. Yudalef for the Hiroahs and Avedis Hashem Ubagdim. Rebbe is going to give the lesson in the service of Hashem by first introducing L'choire is noch als nit glatik. It would seem it's still not smooth. At least in the inner matter of things. Soif is alichas anochash al meyov. At the end of the day, where does the snake walk? It doesn't really bend. he crawls on the mayo, on his stomach. Hoylech shoch is doch nor betchilas halichosik. That's only in the beginning. For was schreibt nicht the Torah, so why does the Torah not write Hoylech al mayo? And if the Torah were said going on the mayo, und der mit koilu sein, alle schrotzim von dem Zugach nochosh. And then that would include everything. Said before that everything is not included, because Hoylech goes higher up, and then that's the Gochin, and therefore it has to be Doime. But why don't we say Hoylech al Meyav, and then that would be anything that goes on the Meyav. But in them is the Hayro in Avedis Hashem. But this is a lesson in the service of Hashem. Chazal Zogma from Nochosh, the Chazal say about the snake, Do Yetzer Hora, that's the Yetzer Hora. Do Zog Teure, and Do Zog Teure. And this is Teure is telling you about the snake. The Yetzer Hora kommt nit lechatchile b'avirken ha'iden. The Yetzer Hora does not come upright to convince a Yid as Olveren Ahilach al Meyav that he should be going on his stomach. Not telling him that's the Nochosh, that's the Yetzer Hora. Doesn't tell him go climb. Doesn't tell him gain krichen and ligen in Yonah Achila. You should go and crawl, and you should be invested in food, etc. In Yonim Artzim, in worldly, earthly matters. And he starts off with walking bent down. Sein Kopf is arobgelost. His head is lowered. Eingebogen, he's bent. As felt him in Su'u Morem Enech Morugeber. He is lacking, he doesn't raise his eyes upwards to see. The way you lower yourself, the way you fall to the ground is by first not looking upwards, but going bent. Not looking, aber dos der viert, but that leads a Seif Sof, that in the end, Verte Rachmon Litzlan, a Neufel Ameyev, he falls on his stomach, falls down totally. The Chazal Zogen, as our sages of blessed memory say, Kachum Nosser Shel Yetzer Hora, this is the craft of the Yetzer Hora. Hayom Emer Lo Yasei Kach V'chulu, today he tells you do so, until he tells you go ahead and serve Avodah Zarah. When the Far is the Eitzah, and therefore, what's the advice? How to overcome the snake is durch ligun in yonim fumorim, is by investing yourself, and your interest should be in matters of above. Torah b'chlal, generally Torah, put your mind to Torah, ubimyuchana specifically nistur pnimis haTorah, specifically in the hidden and the inner part of Torah. Was those bavorim the minyan from Hoylech Besoch, that protects you and cautions you. You shouldn't be bent down. You should be up. You should look up. Look up to Torah. Look up to Chassidus. Und euch das ist merumes in unser Pasuk. This is also hinted, this idea in our verse. The Marsha is mevayer the Maimer Azal. The Marsha explains the saying of our sages. Our sages refer to the scribes, they call them Sofrim. Sofrim means counters. So it says in the Gemara, Lefi koch nikru rishonim Sofrim, the earlier one, the scholars, they were called counters. Shoyu Sofrim kol ha'oisius shabbat. They would count all the letters. They were counted every letter of the Torah. So hoyu emrim, they would say Vav, the letter Vav of the word Gochoin, by the snake, Al Gochen, on the stomach, is the Vav is Chetzion Shel Oisius Shel Sefer Torah V'chulum. This is half, the middle of the letter Sefer Torah. Says the Marsha. What does this mean? Ha'oisius Eina Moirim Rak Al Shmoisov Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These letters, all these letters, to the right, the letters to the left, the letter to the are all names, Kodesh Baruch Hu's names. Shuhu Hanister Gomur Shal HaTorah. The Eibishter is the complete hidden in the Torah. That is hidden. The names and Hashem is hidden in the Torah. Ulefi Shasitra the smaller the Koyach Hatuma, but the left side and the power of impurity. That's the earlier Nachash. That's the snake, the earlier snake. And so Valkain Hifsig Be'oisis HaTorah Bevo. That's why the Torah interrupted the letters of the Torah with a vav, the gochin of the word gochin. Lirmes, to give the hint, if he oisius HaTorah shehem kulam shmeitzov shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that as the letters of the Torah, according to the letters of the Torah, which are all Hashem's name, ein kan mokim lekoyach klal lekoyach hatumah. Over there, the Nachash, there's no place for the tumah. The vav, the gochin mafsikay. The vav of the gochin, which refers to the Nachash, that interrupts so that there cannot be no part of the left side to go ahead and to cause any impact. And that's what the Rebbe was talking about, that not to go down, but to be invested in Torah. And over there is nothing hidden. And there's not going to be any impact from the Nachash. But this can be in two ways, as the Rebbe explained. Two ways. Odem hefsek from Koyach HaNachash Dav Zayin, this interrupting, the vav that interrupts the power of the snake, needs to be nit nor durch der Avodah from Bittel, the Ibud Koyach HaNachash, not just through the service of negating and destroying the power of the snake, but also by sorting out and elevating, sorting the Nachash. Bis es wird nesapech l'Kedusha too, he turns around to Kedusha. The Chazal Zogun in Posik, as the sages of blessed memory say on the verse, Gam oivav yashlin itoi za Nachash. Also the enemies will make peace with him, this is the Nachash. Because haste, this means the Nachash is take oivav. He's an enemy. Gam oivav, he's an enemy. Hashem says, I'll make a hatred between you and the Nachash. Und deswegen, am Oivav Yashlim Yintay, that the Nachash machen Shalom mit him, make Shalom, be a sorting out, an elevation of the Nachash. That Birur, the Nachash, the Klippa. How do we sort out the Nachash, the Klippa? Is durch Megala Zayin, dem Shoyresh, the Nachash, the Klippa, is by revealing the root of Klippa. When you go to the root of Klippa, that's where you can sort it out and you can elevate it, because in its source, it's actually Kedusha. Which means, Odos Vasotin L'Shem Shemayim Niskam. We have sometimes the Nachash working when the Satan comes and tries to persuade the Chava. He meant it L'Shem Shemayim, wanted that it should overcome. Kinas Nachash the Kedusha, that's the snake of Kedusha. This is Mavur in the Minyan, as explained in the idea from the Chash and the Choshes, that copper snake was Moshe Rabbeinu Gemach, that Moshe Rabbeinu made. So it says in the Pasuk, as Dur v'hibit al Nachash and his Choshes, anybody that was bitten by those biting snakes looked to the copper snake that Moshe Rabbeinu made, then they would look towards Hashem. They would do tshuva through that way, as Rashi explains the dur deriyah from the chinas nochash kazmoini, the kedusha. So that the klapemayla is seeing the nochash of kedusha. They're shoyresh for nochash the klippa, the root of nochash the klippa. That really the intention of trying to get a person to sin was not, but to overcome. Is givorim v'chai. So then he became alive after seeing and realizing, connecting to the source, the birur for Nachash the Klippa. That's sorted out Nachash the Klippa. That's how it's translated over there with regards to the Nachash that Moshe Rabbeinu made and brought the life to them. The same thing is over here. Also, this peace between Nachash the Gedusha and Nachash the Klippa is nirmaz in unser pasuk. It's also hinted in our pasuk. The Rebbe brings down that the Tzemach Tzedek is mavayir Indian Hanal Vov the Gochin Chetchin Shel Oisher Shel Sefer Torah. He explains this in my manner. So he says, as der Vov Rabosi from Gochin, that large Vov in the word Gochin is Merames of Sfiras Atiferes. That hints to the Sivira of Tiferes. This is Oila Ada Keser, as it goes up till Keser. The far hotzi bekoyach to mechaber zayin. That's why that vov of goes up to Tiferes has the power to connect the tzvei chatzoyi Sefer Torah, the two halves of the Sefer Torah. V'zaynen b'chinas chesed ugvura. Those represent chesed ugvura. Derech hayedua, similar to what it's known being in chatzoyis laila, by midnight. That this is mechaber, that the midnight connects the tzvei chatzoyi laila. The two parts of the night was the erste Chatzai Laila is Yonik from Din, nurtures from the level of judgment from Gevura. The Tzveite, the second from Chesed from Chesed. From their far and therefore is their Vav, the Gochen Mafsikoy Chanochosh, the Vav interrupts the power of the snake. From Yunika Sachen Nochosh is from Ribu Hatzim Tsumi Mesitra the Smola. Because the nurturing of the Nochosh comes from the many restriction of the left side. Aber durch der Hiskalelus from Yemin und Smoil. So when there is Tzimtzumim of Sitra the Smoil, you get the Nochosh. But when we include Yemin and Smoil, the Sfiras Atiferes, through the Tiferes, wird nifsek sein Yenika. That stops that nurturing, as the Tzemach Tzedek explained, the Vov, the Gochen, is the Tiferes. So we can say, as Oir der Sholem, Tzvishu Nochosh the Klippa, and Shorshe Nochosh the Kedusha, the peace between Nochosh as it comes out in the Klippa, and the root of Nochosh the Kedusha is Durdam Vov Rabosi, comes through this large Vov, or Od der Chibur, Tzvishu Mailo Umato, because the connection between above and below, which is the loikitos amin, which is not as the min, the heretic, mistaken. He says, as mipalgoch le'ela li'iloi dehurmis, from your half and up, you are from hurmis, from the shade, telling the rabbi, mipalgoch le'tatoi da'ahurmis, and your bottom part is from a name for Hashem, is holy. Basically, he told me, is made up of two parts. There's no two parts. There is the Vav that connects. There's no two parts. Through this middle line, which goes through from the one end, the most upper end, to the lowest end. The Far is a Reisha Sholim. That's why he makes peace between Pamalia Shalmailo, Pamalia Shamata, group of above and the group below. These as Oichin and Nochosh Lomata, so that also in the snake below, Bert this Galas and Shoidish, the root becomes revealed. In us Nochosh the Gedusha, Nochosh of Dusha. Not their Sholem, but Zain, this peace will be Begilui, openly, Bebias Mashiach Tzidkenu, the coming of Mashiach, was Oich Mashiach, wird angerufen Nochosh. He too is referred to as Nochosh, Rodan Neratorah, but the Reifton them Yashli Itoy, make peace with him, Bekorev Mamish, very soon. This is Mesichas Maimer, Shabbos Pasha Shemini, Tovshin Lamed.